warning folks about that you think, either have been ignored or that were just so prescient, and you're holding the book and you're screaming at the clouds. You're like, please read the book. We were predicting this. What is like one or two examples or things that are concrete that you can point to that have really, really scared you about Trump?
First, let me say I speak for myself and not for my university. The book predicts danger and dangerousness, and we have already seen it unfold. Basically, we were stating that past violence predicts future violence, and he has shown verbal aggressiveness. He has boasted about sexual assault. He has incited violence at his rallies. He has endorsed violence and shown attraction to violence and powerful weapons. He hadn't yet taunted a hostile nation with nuclear power at that point, but we were predicting that devastating wars and even a nuclear holocaust were not off the table. And now we see that danger has already happened at many levels, not just in terms of alienating a lot of our allies, as well as provoking hostile nations. There has been an unprecedented spike in hate crimes since the day after election that has not abated. There has been widespread schoolyard bullying in his name that is alarmingly high. And then there has been an escalation in gun deaths since his campaign. Every year it's going up 11-12%. That's never happened before. There was a report recently that a large proportion of the extremist violence, terrorism is coming from white supremacists. These are all examples of how a public figure can have effects on the culture to lay down basically the foundation for a culture of violence that can later give rise to epidemics of violence. And this is just one aspect of the risk that we've been facing, and it's borne out to be true. The other dangers, of course, are his psychological instability, his impulsivity, recklessness, paranoid reactions, his loose grip on reality, his rage reactions, lack of empathy, and the constant need to burnish a sense of power. All that has implications in terms of the likelihood of his impulsively pressing the button or going for the nuclear code, as well as now cognitive signs that have been largely noted by specialists and non-specialists alike, that he has a harder time forming complete sentences, staying with a thought, using complex words, and refraining from repeating words or stories, and as well as not jumping from topic to topic. All these things have grown worse over time, and that has ramifications when the decision-making capacity is so important in a person in his position.
So thinking about the response to your book, most of it very, very positive, but especially as of late, we've seen all these folks saying, well, we shouldn't talk about Donald Trump and mental health. We shouldn't be introducing questions about duty to warn to politics. Donald Trump had a medical exam, had a mental evaluation, so all this stuff we really shouldn't be talking about. Why do you think people are in such denial about the obvious?
I think it's because we've been silent for so long. People have been deprived of education about mental health issues, and it's also not a comfortable topic to talk about. My feeling is that all the secrecy and stigma surrounding it is because we've been remaining silent about it. And why would psychiatry as a profession be the only field that places a gag rule on its profession? No other medical specialty does it. No other profession does it. Psychiatry was the first. And not only that, with this administration, they have expanded what is called the Goldwater Rule. In other words, the restriction on speaking about public figures who have not been personally examined and who have not given consent. We're not allowed to speak about them in ways that is not applied to other medical specialties. My opinion is that this is what needs most to be talked about, because there are so many misconceptions and there are many mistaken notions about our book, for example. We're, in fact, not speaking about the personal mental health of Mr. Trump. In fact, we are stating that that is not only impossible to tell from afar, in other words, come to a definitive diagnosis. We, of course, have hypotheses in our head, but to say so would be irresponsible without having all the information. But we're assessing dangerousness. And dangerousness has to do with the situation, not the person. The same person in a different situation may not be dangerous. And dangerousness can be assessed from afar because you don't need all the information. You just need